Hey, what's going on, guys? In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down my training philosophies on everything I have gathered throughout the last decade that I've been training. I've been training since I was 13 years old. I'm now 23 years old, and my credentials is, well, number one, my physique, and number two, this guy. So let's get right into it. This video is arms and chest. So going into arm training. Arms, I've experimented with drastically. I've tried heavy weights. I've tried just doing arms at the end of my push workout, and guess what? That little bit of volume that you have on arms at the end of your push day is not going to give you big guns. I'm telling you that now. In order to have big arms, you need a dedicated arm day. You need to have volume in the workout and also enough volume throughout the week to grow those arms. Breaking down on how I train arms, I like to go into my workout setting the tone. What does that mean? If you played sports growing up, you don't just go into a game or a practice right into your drills or going into playing the game. You warm up. Now, there's two types of people when you played sports. There were people who actually gave a fuck and actually went into the practice wanting to become better. And then there was people that just followed coach's orders. All right, guys, go warm up. Who actually was like the captain of that team, who actually took that warm up seriously to actually start warming up their legs, getting their muscles engaged so they can actually have a good practice that then translates into a good game. Same thing we're going to apply here to our workouts. We're focusing on a muscle group we want to actually grow and build. You need to start setting the tone in the beginning of your workout. So warm up properly. Don't jump right into warming up with the sets before you go into your workout with lighter weight. Start actually activating that muscle group, building that mind muscle connection so you can actually have a good workout in what you're trying to hit. If I'm trying to hit arms in this day, what I'm going to focus on is what usually gives me issues is going to be my elbow. I want to ensure I have a nice warm elbow and start getting a pump in my biceps and my triceps. So I like to do a superset, start off with super lightweight, and very importantly, setting the tone with the right music. There's a couple different choices of music you can have, right? In a warm-up, I like to listen to a bit slower, more melodic, a bit more of emotion in music. This way I can really focus on the mind-muscle connection for this muscle group. If I was to put on some Slipknot or PR song, I'm gonna be way too hyped and I'm not gonna be thinking about actually warming up these muscles. So step one, have a good warm up. What I like to do is I like to warm up my arms on a cable tower. Why? Cables have constant tension. So I start off with triceps here, and I'm using a variation that's a bit better than a tricep rope. Now this variation is better than a tricep rope because as you can see on these handles, it's thicker on the bottom, but at the top where I'm gripping it, that rope is super thin, allowing me to flex my wrist. So this way when I fully extend my tricep, I'm actually getting the best contraction possible. So I'm going for a pretty high rep range here. I'm not even really counting the volume. Some people may say, you're doing way too much volume, bro. No, I'm not. I'm warming up my muscles. This isn't exhausting me. It's setting up my body to actually get ready to work out in my next exercise. So I'm doing about 4 sets, honestly 15 to 20 reps, back and forth. Tricep rope, bicep curl. Tricep rope, bicep curl. And every single set I'm progressing in weight, even if it's just a little minor, going down one stack to be a little bit heavier. But I'm really trying to focus on building that muscle connection, getting that pump going. So this way, my next exercise, I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm ready to attack that shit and start focusing on actually getting a bit heavier in weight. Second exercise selection for arms now. That I just warmed up my triceps and my biceps. I'm ready to attack the smaller muscle group, which is going to be my biceps. So for the biceps, there's no real compound movement because you're not hitting multiple groups, you're hitting both heads. But what I like to focus on is having an exercise that has a full-on stretch and a full-on contraction. So what I choose to do is a seated bicep curl. For this exercise, I'm really focusing on this stretch here. Now, in the beginning of your workout, it's going to be your fresh, right? The contraction part, the top part of that motion, that will give out first later on in your workout. So I'm hitting both here, right? Really good flex, really good length and motion. Really good flex, really good length and stretch part of this exercise. Rep scheme here, we're going for 2 top sets, 8 to 10 reps with 1 back off set, really focusing on finishing off with a great pump and great squeeze here for biceps. First tricep movement, we're going back to the warm-up. The exact same exercise I did for the warm-up felt so great. I actually wanted to focus on actually having good working sets here now. So went right back to that tricep rope extension, and I'll explain one more time. That variation I created allowed me to flex my wrist, really engage my triceps at the top, and fully extend down to flex the tricep. And I'm really focusing on pulling them wide and squeezing. We really want to focus on that contraction because once again, beginning of your workout, the contraction is fresh, it's able to contract. Towards the end of your lift, you'll notice that contraction is harder to get because you're now exhausted. So first part of this workout, I'm really focusing on getting that hard contraction. And later on in the workout, we'll do more lengthened exercises where we load the stretch. But for now, we are milking the shit out of pumping our triceps. On this, once again, for arms, I'm looking at 3 top sets, 12 to 15 reps, high volume. Second bicep movement, we're looking at a preacher curl here, really focusing on the peak of our biceps. Now, I like to use the Prime machines here. Prime machines are great. Dumbbells, they're awesome. They're old school, but here's the awesome thing about Prime machines. If you ever notice on Prime machines, they have a little knob where you can adjust the weight load. You can put it either in the middle range, end middle range, end range, or beginning range, or beginning middle range. Now, what this all means is where it's heaviest in the movement. So once again, as I explained, you will be fresher in the beginning of your workout for the top part, right? The contraction. You'll still have energy to fully get that muscle working at this contraction point. So my first set, I'm loading the weight here at the middle to end range. So this way in the lengthen, there's not much weight going on. I can really focus in on that squeeze. That's for the first set. Second set, I'll go with the middle range, nice even load throughout the whole entire set. Now my last set here, I'll load the beginning middle range because that is what still has energy. The contraction now, it's exhausted. I like to load the middle beginning range for my last set, pump it out, 15 reps here. Now we're going back to triceps. See what we're doing here? Bicep, tricep, back and forth, letting them rest in between each exercise. I like to go with an overhead extension. Now there's 2 different variations you could do here. You could do a standard dumbbell, which is a bit harder on your elbow joints. You'll notice as you get progressively heavier in weight, your elbows will get really sore, which can then inhibit your training for chest, shoulders, and overall, I don't want that. I've experienced that for like 2 years. I played around with overhead dumbbell press, and I will say that's given me the meat and potatoes to the mass on my triceps, right? When you do the overhead extension, you don't want your elbows to flare out like this because look what's happening, right? My elbows go wide. Now you're messing up the stretch in your triceps because you're moving your elbows. Now, if you internally rotate your elbows and you stretch, what's stretching? My tricep stretching. So on this exercise, ensure your elbows staying close to your head. If you have bad mobility, have a partner literally pull your elbows in and really focus on that stretch of the tricep head. So the reason why I do cables, once again, easier on the joints. So I'm going overhead here, putting my hands above my head, really restricting that blood flow. So this way I get a crazy pump once my arms go down. Now for here, rep range, once again, high volume, 3 sets, 12 to 15 reps. And then I'll add an intensifier on that last set. So if I'm going for 15 reps, I'll lighten the weight a little bit and I will do a loaded stretch. So for example, if I'm getting 15 reps, I'll go to about the 6 rep range, hold the stretch for about 7 seconds. Hold it, and don't just sit here because you can sit here all day. You want to actively flex your triceps, have them engage in that exercise so this way they're still working. Hold the stretch for 7 seconds, pump it out. Go to 15, hold that stretch again. Crazy blood flow, crazy intensifier, something to shock the muscle and help it grow even further. Now to hammer curls. Now hammer curls, that grows the brachialis part of the bicep. So when you're pretty lean, you'll start to see this little bulge right here. That's your brachialis. So what that is essentially is a very small muscle in your bicep. And the key here, don't go heavy. You want to contract it. You don't want to be cheat curling it up. Yeah, it works here and there, but overall, if you want to consistently grow your arms, trust me, the contraction and actually feeling it is what matters the most. So the key thing here we're trying to focus on is always keeping that muscle engaged. Try not to let it fully relax at the bottom here. Constant tension, always going up and down. And it's not just going from point A to point B and not giving a fuck about everything in between. You constantly want to have that brachialis engage and think about not just moving the weight in your hand from, down to an up position, but rather jamming your forearm into your shoulder. So what happens here is forearm into shoulder, you press your shoulder, forearm goes up, and you see that brachialis pop out. It has nowhere else to go but out. Now it's flexed and you're working it. Finishing up the arm day, we are ending with a straight bar push down. Now my preference here, I like to use a lat pull down bar. Bit wider than the typical easy bars they have at the gym attachments where it's just about here. I like to go nice and wide. For some reason, I get a way better contraction. For example, if I'm close, tricep versus if I'm nice and wide, tricep. I just have a better mind muscle connection wider. Give it a shot yourself. And these are little things I recommend you to do in your training. Figure out what you feel best for you. Write it down or remember it. Most of the time you forget. So if you have a dedicated log or a notebook or even an app, right? A notes app in your phone. We all have one on Apple. Even if you just write down, like, I have a better mind muscle connection with a wider grip on a tricep extension, now you know, so you can have a better exercise selection for your next workout and you don't have to do trial and error and all this bullshit. You know what works for you, you apply it, and you grow. So that's why I'm making this video, to explain to you what I've realized works really good for me. And I'm sharing it with you because maybe some of these things will help you. I don't think everyone's body is the same, right? We know that for a fact. For my body, what grows me is high volume. I'm not a strong guy. I tried being a power builder back in the day with progressing on my compound lifts, and I sucked at it. You know, some people can't bodybuild. Some people don't have the genetics to have those muscles to display on stage. And some people's training wise, they're just brute strength. Some people train really good with volume and they grow. And that's me. I train well with volume and hypertrophy training. And I'll be honest, I'm not strong. And I'll be honest, I don't give a fuck. I'd rather not lift heavy weight because I don't want to get injured. So I'm pretty happy with what God gave me in terms of being able to just pump up my muscles and they grow. Now, considering chest is a weak point on my physique, as you can see it here, right? We got some pretty dominant shoulders, but this upper chest, I'm just lacking some mass. Like overall, if I'm sculpting my physique, I want to get this collarbone covered. I want to have my upper chest like popping through, and that's a weak point that I'm trying to build up. So I add extra chest volume at the end of my arm days. So I simply do here clavicular flies and low to high flies. That's it. Even a little incline chest press. But to start off, I like to do a superset here with low to high chest flies. I really like to think about in the bottom position, activating my chest, right? You can see, relaxed, activated, scoop, and now my upper chest is all nice and flexed. So this is exercise number 1, really focusing on getting that upper chest nice and pumped, getting that mind muscle connection for the extra volume I'm doing today. So on this, high reps again once for me, lowest rep range will be 12, 3 sets, about 12 to 15 reps. Now I'll superset this with an actual pec deck fly, and same thing here. I'm really focusing about setting the seat position to the point where when I fly, I'm scooping my upper chest. I'm not coming down nice and low and hitting my lower chest. Nice and high, stretching that clavicular area and squeezing all that chest mass so it grows, because that's the area I'm trying to target here. Once again, higher volume, 3 sets, about 10 to 15 reps. Now I'll end my chest day here with an incline press. Now a key thing that I like to do here, if you think about an incline bench on a press, right? It's basically like this. It has an angle and that's it. And you know, for your form, typically what you want to have is your shoulder blades down, abs contracted, because if I was to angle myself on the bench, right, I'm leaning back and then I arch myself, what happens is you turn it into kind of like a flat press. So what I like to do is I get a little foam pad. Some gyms have them. You take a foam pad, I put it back on my shoulder blades. Now what it really causes is my chest to be nice and up and really focused. So when I have the weights, my chest is nice and high. So this way when I go and actually do the movement, all that chest work is happening because my chest is the first thing up. So add a little foam pad to your back and there you go. Get a little bit more chest activation. But I'll end off here with about 2 top sets of 8 to 10 reps. And that is it for chest. Boom. This is video 1 of my training explained. Come back to episode 2 dropping the next few days and I'll be explaining my back